Hello friends, hope you all are doing good. In the previous video, we had studied the first chapter of the economic survey, that is, the state of the economy. If you haven't watched that video yet, then click on the link given in the description. In this video, we shall be covering the next two chapters, that is, medium term growth outlook and fiscal developments. Let's get started. This whole chapter is centered on one diagram. Let's have a look at it. There are four major factors that contribute towards ease of doing business in the economy and ease of living of the citizens. In anti-clockwise direction, these are creating public goods, trust-based governance, private sector participation, and agricultural productivity. Ease of doing business and ease of living then in turn lead to efficient resource allocation and enhancing productive capacity of economy and its people. This approach reflects a paradigm shift in the growth and development strategy of the government, with the emphasis shifted towards building partnerships among various stakeholders in the development process, where each contributes to and reaps the development benefits, thereby realizing the vision of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. What are public goods? In economic sense, a public good is a good that is both non-excludable and non-rivalrous. Non-excludable means that for such goods, the users cannot be barred from accessing or using them for failing to pay for them. For example, the public healthcare facilities. If you dial 108, then the ambulance comes and takes the ailing person to a hospital without asking whether he or she will be able to pay for the treatment. Non-rivalrous means that the use by one person neither prevents the access to others nor does it reduce the availability to them. For example, the public transport such as metro. The major responsibility for the creation of public goods is of the government because of obvious reasons. The private sector won't venture where there is meager or no profits. It can be seen here that the union government's capital expenditure has been rising since the fiscal year 2021. The budget estimate of FY23 projects it to grow to almost 3% of the GDP. With the National Infrastructure Pipeline (NIP) in 2019 and the National Monetization Pipeline in 2021, a strong baseline for infrastructure creation and development has been put in place, providing a multitude of opportunities for foreign investment and engagement. Besides the push to physical infrastructure, the government's emphasis on developing public digital infrastructure during the last few years has been a game changer in enhancing the economic potential of individuals and businesses. It has contributed towards financial inclusion, formalization of the economy, and creation of unified digital interfaces which connect various initiatives or portals that have simplified governance, resulting in a more efficient resource allocation in the economy. Simplification of regulatory frameworks through reforms such as Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code and Real Estate Regulation and Development Act or RERA. it has enhanced the ease of doing business. Another significant reform to enhance doing business has been the decriminalization of minor economic offences under the Companies Act of 2013. This has contributed to the removal of policy uncertainties, which in turn has favorable implications for strengthening the trust between the government and its citizens. The third measure towards trust-based governance has been tax policy reforms, such as adopting a unified GST, reducing corporate tax rates, exemption of sovereign wealth funds and pension funds from taxes, and removing the dividend distribution tax. These have reduced the tax burden on individuals and businesses and have removed the distortionary incentives from the economy. The various initiatives leading to this factor are disinvestment. During FY15 to FY23, an amount of about rupees 4 lakh crore has been realized as proceeds from disinvestment. Privatization of Air India was a significant step in this direction. The new public sector enterprise policy for Atmanirbhar Bharat has thus been introduced to realize higher efficiency gains by minimizing the presence of the government in public sector enterprises to only a few strategic sectors. Enhancement in India's manufacturing capabilities and exports. Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India programs and sector specific production linked incentives or PLIs have contributed significantly towards this. Most sectors are now open for 100% FDI under the automatic route. The National Logistics Policy 2022. It has been launched to create an overarching logistics ecosystem for lowering the cost of logistics and bringing it to par with other developed countries. This would boost economic growth, provide employment opportunities, and make Indian products more competitive in the global market. Support measures for MSMEs. These include the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme and revision in the definition of MSMEs under the ambit of Atmanirbhar Bharat. The measures taken toward this can be categorized under three heads: agricultural production, marketing, and agricultural infrastructure development. Agricultural production. Policies such as soil health cards, the micro irrigation fund, and organic and natural farming have helped the farmers optimize resource use and reduce the cultivation cost. Marketing. Farmer producer organizations (FPOs) and the National Agriculture Market (ENAM) extension platform have empowered farmers, enhanced their resources, and enabled them to get good returns. Infrastructure. Agriculture Infrastructure Fund (AIF) has supported the creation of various agriculture infrastructures. Kisan Rail exclusively caters to the movement of perishable agricultural and horticulture commodities. Cluster Development Program has promoted integrated and market-led development for horticulture clusters. Startup ecosystem in agriculture and allied sectors is also evolving fast. The chapter points out several factors which may propel the growth of Indian economy, such as the sound and healthy financial system developed over the last few years. It will ensure efficient credit provisioning contributing to higher growth in the coming years through higher investments and consumption. The digitalization reforms, it has resulted into efficiency gains through greater formalization, higher financial inclusion, and more economic opportunities. The benefits from the diversification of global supply chains. Given the policy uncertainty, the multinational firms are exploring strategies to diversify their production bases and supply chains. India is well positioned to benefit from it. Before we proceed to the next chapter, let me tell you a joke. Once an economist was hanging around with his friends who were not from economics background. They went to a tea stall to have tea. To impress his friends, the economist guy said, if the government increases the export duty on sugar, then this tea will taste sweeter. His friends were confused, but one of his friends who was sitting just next to him was smiling. He said to the economist, but your tea must already be tasting sweeter. The economist asked, why? The friend said, because while you were trying to impart us knowledge, a fly fell into your tea. Let's get started to the next chapter. The chapter first points out the fiscal deficit of the union government. The fiscal deficit of the union government, which reached 9.2% of the GDP during the pandemic year FY21, has moderated to 6.7% of GDP in FY22 and is further budgeted to reach 6.4% of GDP in FY23. The union government's non-debt receipts comprise revenue receipts, tax and non-tax, and non-debt capital receipts such as proceeds from disinvestment. Let us have a look at this table. After plummeting during the pandemic affected year FY21, the gross tax revenue receipts registered robust growth in FY22, 50.3% year-on-year basis between April-November. The gross tax revenue registered a year-on-year growth of 15.5% from April to November 2022. This revenue revival was attributed to a rebound in the collection of all major direct and indirect taxes in FY22, except excise duties, which registered a decline of about 21%. The year-on-year growth of direct taxes exceeded that of indirect taxes during FY21 and 22 and shall do so in FY23. The budget estimate for FY23 assumes that the share of revenue receipts from direct taxes, that is rupees 14.2 lakh crore, shall also surpass that of indirect taxes, which will be rupees 13.3 lakh crores. Thus, the direct taxes are poised to become the lead contributor to the government's tax revenue receipts. As per the budget estimate for FY23, 52% of the center's tax revenue shall come from direct taxes, 26% each from corporation income tax and taxes on income other than corporation income tax. GST with 28% contribution shall remain the largest source of government's tax revenue. After declining in 2020 due to the adverse impacts of the pandemic on economy, the GST collections surged during 2021. It grew year on year at a rate of around 25% between 2021 and 2022. The improvement in GST collections has been due to the combined effect of the rapid economic recovery post-pandemic, the nationwide drive against GST evaders and fake bills, along with many systemic changes introduced recently and various rate rationalization measures undertaken by the GST Council to correct inverted duty structure. Let us now take a look at states' performance in economic matters. The gross fiscal deficit of states increased from an average of around 2.5% before FY21 to 4.1% during FY21. The revenue deficit also climbed to near 2% of the GDP. However, the gross fiscal deficit lowered to 2.8% of GDP in FY22 along with the lowering of the revenue deficit. But these are again projected to rise in FY23 because of the slowing of the global economy as well as the Indian economy. Total liabilities of the Union government moderated from 59.2% of GDP in FY21 to 56.7% in FY22 provisionals. The debt on the government is categorized under two major heads: public debt and public account and other liabilities. Public debt. It is contracted against the Consolidated Fund of India. Sources of public debt are dated government securities, treasury bills, external borrowings, etc. 90% of the government's debt is of this category. Public account. As the name suggests, it is contracted against the public accounts. The sources for this kind of debt are National Small Saving Fund, Provident Fund, etc. The government has also found a new avenue to raise money: the extra budgetary resources. In this, the central government raises money through its public sector undertakings, through their profits, loans, and equity. The major source of government's debt is internal, about 115 lakh crore out of the total debt of rupees 134 lakh crore. Thus, there are less threats originating from currency fluctuations. Also, about 42% of the dated government securities have a maturity term of 10 years and above, thus low threats from interest rate fluctuations. Thus, the government debt can be said to be fairly stable and sustainable. Guys, I hope that you liked this video. Please let us know your feedback through the comment box. Also, subscribe to the channel to get notifications about new videos. Thank you.